Ansel didn't buy a box of photographic paper. He would buy 40, 50, 60, 100 boxes of paper because it had the same emulsion, so he knows exactly what he's doing. With this paper, it dried down improperly, so it kind of melted the surface. So he calls up Ilford and says, look, this is defective paper, and they go, prove it. So he had to print one print from each box, and he sent it to the Ilford rep in Monterey, and the Ilford rep says yes, so he got new paper. Well, the Ilford rep was a friend of Adams, but normally, so when the prints went to Ilford, Adams worked for Wells Fargo Bank for quite a while, doing photographic projects, and he got a Wells Fargo check canceling machine, one of the old-fashioned ones, and so they would cancel all those prints so they couldn't float out into the public and somebody could mount it and try to call it a real Ansel Adams. So they canceled them. And when I was at Berkeley, the AGFA rep came by and talked to us one afternoon. And then he quit, and he was doing he was Scottish and had a Scottish liquor store in downtown San Francisco. And he would come over to the gallery all the time. And he said, look, I've got these Moonrises that Ansel gave me. Would you be interested? I'm kind of getting older and would like to sell them. I don't have any money, I'm not interested. And about 6 weeks later, I had money. So I bought the three. And they were really camp. Where the clouds are, it said defective paper, in parentheses, the emulsion number. And there were several white dots, so he circled them with red. So it was just really a camp presentation, and they're in my entryway. And then one of the private dealers knew had come over to my house and seen them, and a couple of years later, he called up and said, I have some canceled Moonrises, would you be interested? I said, no, I don't have any money. And eventually he called me back about 3 months later, and that started the process. And then what was funny is that when these came out, a friend of mine put it in a blog, it was on a Thursday. Well, the first complaint came in from Paris, and then one came in from New York, and then there was a big brouhaha about it. And by Friday evening, I live in Marin, so I was taking the ferry back, and I get a call from Bill Turnage. Well, Bill Turnage was the head of the Ansel Adams Publishing Trust, and he's God. And he goes, hi, Scott, how are you doing? And we talked for a second. I'm getting off the ferry. Well, do you know anything about these canceled Moonrises? And I said, well, I do, but I'm getting off the ferry. And he said, well, call me when you get a chance. And I called him the following night, and he said, well, why don't we have lunch on Monday and you can show them to me? And he saw them, and he goes, God, I really like them. I really want one. But he was going blind, so he really couldn't get one. But he anointed them, so it was a lot of fun. And it's kind of a this to the perfectionist. And what I mean is that sometimes there are flaws, the beautiful prints. The poetry of the print is really important, the way it's printed. And sometimes there's a slight flaw. Well, I used to sell a lot to the Japanese in the 80s, and if a corner was bad, they weren't interested. It wasn't the print, it was how how perfect it was. That you're missing the music if you don't see, get through some of the small problems. And every print has one flaw somewhere. So it was a lot of fun. And so it still continues.
A great story. It really is great. It's just great fun, part of photo history, and there's so many famous photographs in this book. I don't know where to start. I love Edward Weston. That was just such a beauty, and the print is gorgeous. And if you get really close up, you can see the green and then another Edward Weston.
So the Diego Rivera was Edward Weston's sister. He would give her prints and send her prints, and this print was in her collection. And Sotheby's had a sale, maybe 15 years ago, of the collection, and they had actually a book about the collection of the sister. And it's down below it. It's signed Edward Weston, 1924. Then below that, Mexico, and it's a real treat. And it was done in Mexico. The paper's really thin that it's mounted on, and it's just a treasure to have.
It really is. And then there's
that's called In the Doorway. And I'll show you one that I don't pull out very often. And this is one of the kind of the special images. And it's the double shell by Edward Weston, 1927. And this belonged to the art critic of the Los Angeles Times. And they lived in Malibu, the canyons, and they lived about 2 blocks from the Westons. Well, on Friday nights, the Westons would clear out the living room, and at 8 o'clock, Brett Weston would go down and walk the daughter up, and they would dance until midnight, and then Brett would walk her back, and they were lifelong friends. And because I was really close with Brett Weston, I was able to get this image. And what's interesting about it is it was in fairly poor shape, but it has an overmat, and the overmat is signed. And then the print was removed from the mound, and on the back it says in pencil, Edward Weston, Glendale, 1927. So this is a lot of fun. And it's also the cover of what they call the Conger book. And Amy Conger was getting a PhD at the Center for Creative Photography in Arizona, where Ansel's archive is, and Edward Weston's archive is. So she did her own research. It was the collection of the 4 sons sold to the Center for Creative Photography in 1982. And the collection of 2,100 or so prints only went for $2 million. And so some of the best Westons now run at $1.5 to $2 million. So time has changed.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for showing us.
You're welcome.
I just looked at the time. I've taken up way too much of your time. Thank you so much for joining us. What a pleasure to have you here. And if you have questions, please don't hesitate. Don't be shy.
Thank you.
You know, so much. These are incredible people here, and they love to talk about it. So you're never in a questions? There's another one downstairs. Yeah.
That's Ruth Bernhard, and she died at 101.
Oh, wow.
And
It's just the symmetry, the lighting, it's all colors.
she was very close friends with Edward Weston, and they met in the mid-30s, and they immediately hopped into bed. But they both liked women, so nothing happened, but they remained lifelong friends.
Wow. You had some salgados around the corner, right?
Yes.
I just out of the corner of my eye. I love his I mean, he's so distinctive.
A colleague of mine in the early 80s.
He saw that whole exhibition in Paris, and then she wrote apologists about it.
And
I out of the corner, I'm like, that is definitely.
she had looked in the New York magazine and saw this article on Sebastian's daughter and contacted her. He had no representation in the United States. Nobody really knew who he was. And this was the article that he lived in South New York, thing, and she brought something to him. So that was in the early 80s.
Yeah. No, our firm actually it's one of the mine series, but it's not. It's a more close-up of a worker and the 2 workers as opposed to like this.
You know, they would get any bad. And how for something from bad they get out of and this, so they're constantly But we should be rid of this guy. They're constantly and so it's not an ignorance that they act out against the parents.
That's also the same.
And a young girl was playing in the stream in about 1976. They found a gold nugget. And that book started, and then the corporations came in and bought all the land, and that's
No, the energy between them is really.
yeah.
And then people sort of turn on who don't want to get involved or something going on with that.
I think they want to go out with that.
Yeah. And